All right, so we're going to do a ball by ball commentary, so to speak. It's 2 o'clock, and you know the good news is that the APNU AFC coalition government won the international court proceedings today. In other words, the court rejected, just threw the matter of Venezuela out through the door, and its money's well spent. And again, congratulations to the coalition government for that. I've noticed that there are some folks who there's no congratulations, none whatsoever, to this installed PPP regime. And people got to be very careful, in terms of the political message that they're sending out there. Some of these folks are not experienced, they're newcomers on the scene, and they are just showing themselves up as political neophytes. And we know who those individuals are. One of the things that let me say to you guys while you share the link is we want to hear what this thing has to say, and this thing has a press conference coming up shortly, of which we want to be able to just tap in a little bit of that. And nothing much of substance came out from the PNC's response, or the PNCR's response from the shadow minister of foreign affairs. Obviously, no experience. A couple of courses in foreign relations doesn't make one an expert in the area, an expert in the area. And so it sends conflicting messages. When this particular message from purportedly out of Amanza Walton Desir, who is set to be the shadow minister of foreign affairs. I don't know, but at least Rohi was also once foreign minister. So these things happen in Guyana. And according to this report coming out, it says the APNU AFC stands with the government. What government are they standing with? Which government? Do we really have a government? We have an installed regime. Okay, we have an installed regime. We have elections petitions that have been pending in the courts, and Guyana has a government under questionable circumstances. So the proper or the political wording for this should have been maybe, if you want to address them as a government, so to speak, be fair enough to address them as a caretaker or something to that effect. You do not give them any sort of legitimacy. You just do not do that. And these people, some of these people in the opposition, they got to learn. Some feel they know it all. Some feel they know too much. But there's slips. They're showing up themselves in terms of incompetence in a lot of areas. I agree with you, Patricia Asana, the installed government. And I've noticed another PNCR person was saying, congratulations to, and named a few persons, including Gail and Anil. So I asked a simple question. What has Anil done to be praised? What has Gail Teixeira done to be praised? We've got to be careful. We can't just try to be politically correct and try to sound nice and these sort of things. A simple question. The Guyanese people won from this court proceedings, thanks to the coalition government for doing that. Had it not been for the coalition government, and this is why we got to pay emphasis to the coalition government, the APNU AFC, had it not been for the wisdom of that government, we would not have been where we are today. Because this is what would have happened under the PPP regime. They would have had some kind of deal, as Jack Dare spoke about, some kind of deal with Venezuela to give Venezuela a piece of Essequibo. Jack Dare, who wanted that? This is not what I am talking off the top of my head because I want to talk. It is a fact. It is right there. And so we cannot allow these guys at all to take control of this situation. We just cannot allow them to do that, period. It shouldn't happen. And we definitely not going to accept that as any sort of reality. So I asked a question from one of those APNU AFC person, PNC person. Can you tell me what exactly have they done? Well, I've noticed the person probably responded on their page, and this is what they say. The PNC person, LOL, Mark Benchab, LOL. And LOL, for some of you who don't know what LOL means, it means so many different things, but laugh out loud. In a kind of way, the person is saying here, in a kind of way, you may be right. That is why I use the word national, because they already taking credit if you read some of their supporters. So now, if they are attempting to take credit, why would you even congratulate them? Anil, you see, I don't know if some of these guys don't get it. And when I speak sometimes and I try to highlight these things, some people get vexed. They get vexed. They get upset. All kudos ought to be going to the coalition government. And so if you're going to thank anybody, you thank the coalition government. This is something where we should run all the way onto the mountaintop with the coalition government and thanking them for this victory today. Thanking them. And so this release should have, and I hope the shadow minister of whatever it is, foreign affairs or whatever, is watching, and to understand that jumping in and issuing a quick press release without having a proper understanding about the issues and these sort of things can put you in a little bit of hot water. And people got to simmer down a little. This is not just a fashion show where people want to rush to be leader, rush to be president and whatever, and they don't think before they issue a statement. This is what it says. It says the APNU plus AFC stands. The APNU AFC stands with the government. No, the APNU AFC stands with the people of Guyana in welcoming the decision handed down. You're standing with the people. You cannot stand with an oppressive, corrupt apartheid regime because of this issue. This issue, this victory is not as a result of the PPP. It is not. Again, I wish to reiterate, had it been for the PPP, this is where Guyana would have been. You see this, you saw this, and somebody tagged Amanza Walton this year so that she can get a better understanding about politics. This headline here, we're seeing it in the newspaper not so long ago in Guyana, and it says here, former President Bharat Jagdeo and the late former president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, Jagdeo had admitted to offering to cede part of Guyana's territory to Venezuela. So how can you give any kudos to a regime that wanted to give away a piece of your country? And then because of a victory that has nothing to do with them, you're going to want to praise them and say, thanks to them, or you stand with them. They don't stand with you. They're not standing with the people. They know exactly who they're standing with, a bunch of corrupt individuals. So nobody in their right sense would say that they stand or they're standing with the government. Wrong bang. Wrong bang. Wrong bang. Let me show you guys something. I'll show you guys, and it's funny, maybe not too funny at all. It's just our operator is trying to find something for us. And sorry about that, got lost for a moment. I don't know if I'm correct or if I'm wrong. You guys can tell me this, right? You guys can tell me this. Um, Somebody saying, Mark, please don't insult a man's intelligence. Stop it. What intelligence am I insulting? Please, Peggy, tell me, what intelligence am I insulting? What intelligence? Please, we're talking politics here, right? And you do not feed into your political enemy. There is nothing to stand with this illegal, this corrupt PPP regime with. Nothing at all. And so this press release, or whatever you want to call it, this hurried, this rushed press release with not much substance is basically giving kudos to the PPP regime for nothing at all, nothing deserving, absolutely nothing. You stand with the people of Guyana. And then in this release, you ensure that you say, had it not been for, and for the wisdom of the APNU AFC coalition government for ensuring that the right path is taken. Congratulations to the people of Guyana for this victory. You stand with the people of Guyana. You can't stand with a regime that is described as an apartheid regime. You cannot stand with a regime. You cannot stand with a regime that is persecuting your people. You cannot stand with a regime that is corrupt. You cannot stand with a regime that has done all these bad things to mainly your support base. And because it is convenient now, you say you stand with the government. It is not sending a proper message to your support base. And that is the point that I'm making. Some folk, I only see one comment of, but at the end of the day, we cannot be emotional, right? This is not insulting whatever little intelligence politically some folks may have or not. I notice Eglin Gomes is saying error in judgment. This is more than just an error in judgment. It is stupidity. It shows that they were not prepared. And so this statement was issued belatedly. You just at the last minute issue a statement. At the last minute. I agree with you too, Mr. Wayne Brown. Possibly an error in judgment. And when you tell these people in the opposition, they got to be more proactive. This matter was announced a while now that the decision would be handed down today. Anyone following this matter would know that in terms of keeping with the consistency of the rule of law and the proper ruling of the court, they were bent to rule in favor of the APNU AFC wisdom in taking it to court. They were bent on ruling in favor of Guyana. They were bent. Here it is, Gail Henry. Amanza is right. You cannot say installed. If the U.S. State Department addressed Irfaan Ali as the installed president, if the White House has issued a statement to address as installed president, what are you telling me that Amanza is right? That you cannot say installed, putting out a statement? Gail, you couldn't be serious. Don't tell me, but she and all Guyana knows the government is installed. Don't give me this Jim Cock bring ram goat story. Please don't give me this Jim Cock bring ram goat story at all. Don't give me it. We are quick to come up with these Jim Cock bring ram goat story. State Department too should put government instead of installed. They're installed. That is what they are. This is not a government in Guyana. So come on, Gail. Come on, Gail. You're Gail Henry. And I believe you're very smart, you're intelligent, And this statement makes you look like your last name is Teixeira, but I don't want to say Teixeira, right, Gail Henry? So we'll just bypass that. And there is no need to praise or to stand with any government. We have a corrupt regime right now in Guyana. That is what we have. Leroy Henry has a point. The outcome of today's procedural victory is a direct result of legal strategy design. That is true. You are correct, and kudos again. Kudos to those legal luminaries. Kudos to them, and kudos to the taxpayers' money, about $18 million plus being spent in a manner that it should be spent in a productive way. And so I agree with you, Leroy Nelson. I agree with you. I agree with you. Sorry, some folks don't know when you're on, but they keep calling and calling. And so I agree with you. And had it not been for the wisdom of the coalition, we would not have had this case today. We would have been probably in Venezuela, Leroy Nelson, if you have some relatives in Essequibo, they probably would have been calling you and speaking to you in Spanish. And then knowing that maybe you do not understand much Spanish, I'm assuming, Leroy, I don't know, ¿tú hablas mucho español or poquito? I don't know. Like, for example, if I do speak a little Spanish, some people say, oh, ¿tú hablas mucho español? I say, no, mi mamá habla mucho español, me habla poquito. Mi madre habla mucho español, venezuelana. And they're like, oh, tu madre habla español. Sí. And so in Essequibo, a lot of folks would have been speaking Spanish. You call up maybe tu madre, tu padre, or maybe tu esposa, tu esposo, habla mucho español y Essequibo, right? And so if Leroy didn't understand much Spanish or poquito, then Leroy would have been asking me to interpret. Hey man, Mark, what my relative in Essequibo asking me in Spanish? Oh, Leroy, your familia, my familia just asked you to go down to Western Union for them. Things are rough in Essequibo since the Venezuelans started to hand out what is it? ID cards. And that was what they wanted to do when Jack Deere was president. Thank you, Lyra. Lyra said, no habla español. I noticed Ann John just came on. Ann John, you just came on. You didn't miss anything. Calm down. We're just having a conversation. You didn't miss nothing. You didn't miss nothing. You didn't miss nothing. So Sean Withers is correct that they do need a crash course. They need a crash course in a lot of things. A lot of things they need a crash course in. Lots of things. You know, lots of things they need a crash course in. All right, Leroy, you know why we're here. Mother Dandan does have a press conference, and we want to be able to carry that press conference to hear what Mother Dandan has to say, aka Barrett Jack Deere, at that press conference. So that press conference, according to our operator, is about to start. And let's see what.
Having the substantive case presented before the ICJ. We welcome all of the bipartisan support that we have received. This matter, as was pointed out by the opposition, has always been the matter of the issue of our border, a national issue, and shouldn't be a cause for division or low life sniping. And I just want to condemn what I've seen by Valda Lawrence. She just made a post which says, APNU AFC, take a bow, return on the 18 million US signing bonus. As though this outcome of the ICJ is a return on the signing bonus. Now, let me quickly tell you about the signing bonus. The signing bonus was provided for, and was the government received it.
The lies have started. The lies have started. The propaganda has started. This guy has wasted no time for propaganda. It's hurting him. And he should be ashamed to be sitting there to talking about bipartisan approach and all these manner of things. Do not give these people ammunition to make it look as though they're onto something good. They have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with today's victory. None whatsoever.
Although his ministry had authorized the creation of the account, and he knew that the money was sitting in the account almost a year after he gave that answer. When it came to light, and this was largely because of investigative work by the media and by the political parties in opposition at that time, they refused to transfer the money to the consolidated fund. And as you know, the money was illegally kept outside.
That is so incorrect. The lies and the lies and the lies and the lies. The coalition government never had a problem in transferring the money. They wanted to ensure then that the gatekeeper, so to speak, was done. Those folks would have been selected, and it would have been a body of independent Guyanese all across Guyana would be able to have a decision as to how the money is going to be withdrawn, so forth and so on. It is Jack Dale and his cabal who rejected that. All they want is a bunch of cronies that Jack Dale, could control, that could go and dip their hands into the consolidated funds, into the hands where the money is being kept, the hundreds of millions of dollars, so that they can plug it out whenever it's necessary for them. Lies, 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 lies.
Of the consolidated fund. This money was placed in none of those accounts. We had to go to the court to get them to transfer the money. They then made the false claim that this money was going to be used for the border case. Now, our argument was that if you need 18 million US dollars to pursue our case at the ICJ, the PPP will support that. If you need $100 million, I recall saying this in opposition, $100 million US dollars to present the best case, we will support it. But you did not have to do it in an illegal or surreptitious fashion. You could have placed the money into the consolidated fund and easily say we had to appropriate money for our case to the ICJ, and they would have had our 100% support. So when I see on a day like this, that should be a day that we be happy about because we get finally to have our substantive case being heard at the ICJ, and we know about the strength of our case and about the weakness in Venezuela's assertions that the 1899 arbitral award was not valid. So it should have been a day for rejoicing, and all of us should have been happy, but it had to be spoiled by this partisan sniping. Now, we have seen the last week since I spoke here characterized, as we have come to expect, by drama again from the APNU AFC and the Lilliputian leader of that party. So another female general secretary seems to be, from all, we're impartial. The People's Progressive Party is an impartial observer. we did not post any tape of what happened. We were passively viewed a tape where it seems as though the general secretary of that party was shut out of Congress Place. Now, just a week before that, I had spoken about in Norton's tenure, two female general secretaries have been removed or have lost their jobs, and a treasurer. And now Norton seems to want to outdo his really impressive track record of the past. So this week we've had another set of drama. Now we don't know of the circumstances that led to this, but it's obscene in any case. It's obscene. And what is even more obscene is Mr. Norton giving some wishy-washy explanation as to what is going on. So he needs to be interrogated.
Let me ask you guys this. What does this have to do with anything? What does a situation with the general secretary now has to do with anything? He just lied about the 18 million signing bonus. He just lied about that. He said that he would cooperate and he would do. He never said that. Let him show the evidence. And you can tell that he is confused right now. You can tell that he's disoriented right now. You can tell that he knows that we are watching him and that he is lying. He has nothing. Is this what we are wasting our time? Is this what I just left my bowl of cook-up to do? To watch? Is this what? I don't know. Something is wrong with this guy. Something is definitely wrong with him.
Held by our Lilliput. And he took with him, first of all, he said that, and I'm not going to go through everything, but some of the most obvious things. He said that APNU AFC would help people to pay rent if they get into government. That you shouldn't really be owning homes because the government is building homes that are not too small for people. So you can hear what's going on in the bedroom. Now, how more divorced from reality can you get? For many people across this country historically grew up in modest housing. They always aspire to do better and eventually to build better facilities. The leader of the opposition and then President Granger had a very modest house on.
This guy has got to be drunk. This guy has got to be under the influence of something. I don't know if you guys would agree with me. Something isn't right about this guy today. His performance, something isn't right about him at all. He's very disoriented. He knows that he's lying. He's the last person to want to talk. And then he did say something that about houses being close to each other. If we have the land space, if they got hundreds and thousands of acres to give away to their friends and their cronies, why is it that people, and I believe this is what Aubrey Norton was referencing about, so clustered up that if somebody sneezes in their bedroom, their next door neighbor would hear a little sneeze. But obviously Jack Dale wouldn't know about sneezing in his bedroom. But we're not going that route at all. He doesn't know about those sort of sneezing and so forth and so on. And so he wouldn't understand what Norton has said. And now he shouldn't be talking. Look, this is where this guy came from. Jagdeo came from a shop front. The shop front wasn't looking like this. Jagdeo came from a shop front. From a shop front because he became the biggest welfare recipient in Guyana, where he was able to take the people's monies, taxpayers' monies, mind you, taxpayers' monies, in order to ship stuff into the country. And I knew that he was going to come with his BS today. This is but just one of the documents that we have with regards to his shipment from China, done by Ed Ahmad, his friend Ed Ahmad, and shipped to Guyana directly to State House, where he had several containers he had in State House, looking really, really bad. And you think ghetto people, they like to say ghetto people, he transferred that not as a ghetto place or whatever, a rundown place. State House is a rundown place. The taxpayers are the owners of State House, right? But you should see how he had the State House looking. And he was bringing in these materials directly from China to build this here. So he shouldn't be talking about people's houses. He shouldn't be talking about what Aubrey Norton said, allegedly. He shouldn't, because for 20-something years, they couldn't make lives better for Guyanese. They couldn't. They have insulted, they have destroyed the psyche of Guyanese people, all manner of things they have done. So it's a shame and disgrace that Jack Dale is talking as though he cares about the ordinary people in Guyana.
And bodies. And the major opposition party in the country has not made a decision whether it will contest or not, but it's preparing. And it wants a number of issues, phantom issues, addressed, because it hasn't said what it wants addressed. This is the state of confusion that that party is in at this point in time. So now what I'm fearful of, though, is that given what I said before, that they are finding it very hard not only to come up with a list of candidates in many NDCs across Guyana, but they're also having a hard time finding backers for the list, that we'll have a return to what they practiced widely in the 2018 elections, local government elections, where they forged the signatures of many of the backers and misled many of them.
That is definitely a matter for GCOM to discuss. There is no evidence. That has not been an area of concern by GCOM then. He's now making that an issue now because he knows on the flip side of things, it was the PPP being accused of all those things. It was the PPP being accused of dead people voting. It was the PPP being accused then, and still they are the ones who are being accused of padding. And I don't want to use the word padding with Jack Dale in the same sentence, but they're the ones who have been accused of padding Jack Dale, padding the list. You guys have been accused, and the evidence were there that you stole an elections and that you stole a seat from the AFC and that you attempted to steal, the PPP attempted to steal another seat in 2011. So don't go that route, Jack Dale. Now here's what he's doing. Here, 61 dead voters. He's not going to talk about that. He's not going to talk about the absent voters, 4,864. He's not going to talk about the 150 stuffed ballot boxes. He's not going to talk about the 47 ballot boxes without documents. He's not going to talk about these things because all of these things, or the majority of these things, are pointing in the direction of Jack Dale and the PPP.
Why we're putting Marriott, selling Marriott at this point in time. And people can agree or disagree with that. We believe we can maximize the revenue to the Treasury, and ultimately ownership of a hotel does not allow a government to pursue its strategic goal, which is to create employment for people generally.
That's a lie again. The proposal to sell the Marriott is to give it to his friend, their friends, and watch who the buyer or buyers are going to be. I'm almost certain that some of those buyers or buyer would be wanted by the United States of America for extradition. Just keep a look, keep an eye out. It's where they are washing their monies, and Jack Dale knows that. He should know a couple of things or two, I assume, mind you, about washing money. So I assume, right? I assumed, right, that that is what it is about. Because a country with not, they promised 50,000 jobs. He's not going to talk about that. He's not going to talk about their promise free tuition at the university level. He's not going to talk about that. They're not creating jobs into the communities. They believe that the part time jobs, by paying their friends and cronies and a couple of people that they catch, and give them $40,000, 200 US dollars per month, that it is sufficient. That part-time jobs is sufficient. And then when they have their PPP outreach programs and so forth, the slave catchers go around and they force these people that are part of part-time jobs that they have to attend meetings, whether it's at Babujan, whether it's wherever, to take minibuses to head out to Georgetown to meet with them and force these people into joining the party and coerce them into making public statements that they're now with the PPP. That is what is happening. And majority of the people are going to reject that. The PPP is in serious trouble. Do not be fooled, guys.
We are tackling it definitively. We see the need for cheaper electricity. We're tackling it definitively by that project. In the 5 years of APNU, they didn't tackle electricity supply.
Stop it. Let's talk about electricity, not electricity. GPL has never made a profit under the PPP. GPL started to make a profit under the coalition. That is a fact. The coalition moved to, maybe not as quickly as they should, but they were able to get rid of majority of the corrupt individuals there at the Guyana Power and Light. And so we didn't see the frequent blackouts throughout the country, Georgetown and all these places. We didn't see that under the coalition. That is a fact. And GPL started to make that turnaround under the APNU AFC administration. We began to see that, something Jack Dave they could have never done. And he's talking about cheap electricity. Remember the hundreds of millions of dollars that wasted in the Amila Falls project? That Amila Falls hydro project, something that Burnham recommended years ago, that they now, Jack Dale invested hundreds of millions of your money into. And what has happened to that? But yet he's coming here to give you guys Jim Bring Ramgoat story about what the coalition didn't do with electricity, and they wanted cheap electricity, and they lie. Before we get back to his lies, he has got to get this award. We've got to give him this award. He's one of the biggest liars they have right now. He needs a crown for that.
The racist campaign that they can't openly carry now, the PNC, because they're under scrutiny. And for the first time in this country, people are examining the party in great detail, dissecting it. And every section that they dissect, they're finding a racist DNA there. So that is what's happening there. That's why they're changing the tactic a bit. And so the WBA
is this the same man who was sued for practicing institutional racism, where they had no senior members of the diplomatic corps at that time were of African descent? Not a single one of them. And then after they were taken to court by Freddie Kissoon, who is now sleeping with them, mind you, all of those evidence were not the works of a Freddie Kissoon. Freddie Kissoon took the work of Lincoln Lewis, who was talking about economic genocide. The first man to talk about economic genocide in Guyana, Lincoln Lewis. And then he took evidence compiled by Agda and put it in a little booklet, and he made it look as though it was his work. When I confronted Freddie about it, Freddie said, "Man, rest yourself, man. Oh, man, oh gosh." It wasn't Freddie's job. It was job that people already did. All right. So for Jack Day now to talk about he's seeing DNA racism, DNA in the coalition or in the PNC, it's a lie. These guys are the biggest racists they have right now in Guyana. There's an international agency that has written to the PPPC regime for them to respond to allegations, and they know the agency that wrote to them. They know it. So they are yet to respond to that agency with regards to allegations of racism. He is talking about everything else, but he's not talking about Sue and the serious levels of corruptions, allegations of corruption, and all these manner of things. He's not talking about that. He's dodging it. You know, like back in the days when we used to play dodgeball, and you got to dodge and dodge. That is what he's doing. He knows how to play these nice soft games. Dodge, dodge, or hopscotch, hop. That's what he's doing. So instead of calling this a press conference, they should call it a Dodge conference. Let's go back to the Dodger.
So apparently he doesn't know that. The second audit, we made it clear why we wanted local content, and the second audit has been done, and the preliminary work is completed now, and it has to go through all of that. So that's the first thing. The guy doesn't know this. So I think he's piggybacking. They look at the media, they have no original thought. So they're looking at the media and saying, maybe what's surfacing in the media that we can jump on now. So Stabrook News has brought up the question of the IHS Markit report. And whilst they have a right to question everything, one characterization that they've had where they said the government has kept this secret is patently false. Because I had to point out when I gave a comment at the local content summit that this is not a policy-making issue. The policy-making issue was to get the audit completed. This is a purely technical matter, and I believe on one hand, they want the policymakers, they say you micromanage, and then the other hand, you must get down to deal with all the technical issues. So the reason why it's not secret, for example, what was secret was the PSA. They had to file a number of things on the PSA in the registry. The PSA, they didn't do that. They kept it out of the registry. It was the PSA, the signed one was kept under lock and key.
Again, he's lying about that, but I'll leave that for the coalition to respond at some point in time. Whether it's today they're going to respond to that, or tomorrow, or they probably would never respond. It all depends on them. But let us focus on what we are doing here today. This is a distraction. It is a distraction. We haven't heard him mention anything about dancehall for competition. I hope one of the media folks ask him about that. He's not talking about gold smugglers smuggling gold out of the country and robbing the country of its earned revenues and these things. We're not seeing that. We're not going to hear that. He's not going to talk about school violence. Sorry, put the picture up at the same time when I use the word violence. Might be coincidental. It might be for good reason. He's not going to talk about the appointment of Irfan Ali's mom to a position. He's not going to talk about these things. He's not going to talk about the fact that Guyanese are upset. They're now protesting overseas in front of the Guyana consulate. He's not going to talk about a planned protest in front of the United Nations. He's not going to do that. He's not going to tell you about the $300 and almost $50 million given to his friends and his cronies out in Linden to build a school, and this is how far they have gone. To build a school, $350 million taxpayers' monies to build a school, and that is what has happened to them. He's not going to talk about $200 million that was placed into this Keldon sugar factory that he, Jack Deere, wasted. He's not going to talk about that, right? Don't expect that. He's not going to talk about this sole sourcing of this ID card that was given to a German company. And according to what we're hearing, it is through Mercury, the PR company for them, Mercury, the international PR company. He's not going to talk about that. Those are things he's not going to talk about. He's not going to talk about what's happening there at GCOM and the allegations of corruption and nepotism and all manner of things. He's not going to talk about that. He's not going to talk about the fact that they are reluctant to ensure that these two persons become the substantive Chancellor of the Judiciary and Chief Justice. He's not going to talk about that and the fact that they're deliberately moving away from this because of racism. He's not going to talk about that. He's not going to talk about the fact that he wanted to give away a piece, maybe a piece of Guyana. He's not going to talk about that. But instead, he's going to find all sort of Jim Cockburn Ramgood story to talk about and waste all those reporters' precious time, waste state media's time because of taxpayers who are actually funding it, wasting time on state media to talk a bunch of baloney, a bunch of crap, and a bunch of lies. But do we expect anything better from this goon? No.
That I saw in the Starbuck News article, it says it's a whopping 12.8% of the 1.67 billion of expenses could be disputed. A whopping 12.8% of our $214 million. But the article goes on to categorize how these $214 million were identified. So it says the fine cost for removal is $34 million. That is what the audit said has to be removed from the cost bank into the profit share award. 34 of the 214 million. Inadequate supporting document, 179.8, 180 million of the 214. They said inadequate supporting documents. So they're waiting for additional documents from Exxon to support that expenditure. So if they can't, then that goes into cost. But if they
imagine this is a press conference. Just imagine, guys, that this is actually a press conference. It sounds more like a mini rally, a mini political rally that makes no sense. Who does this guy think he's fooling? Who does this guy think he's talking to? He feels that for the past almost 3 years that people have been living in some sort of a rat hole. He thinks for the past 20-something years or for the 20-something years that they have ruined Guyana, that people were living in some sort of a rabbit hole, that people don't know what's going on. This guy has got to be talking to some sort of newborn or some sort of foreigner who doesn't know who he is and what he's about. He's not about development. He's not about Guyana. He's just about corruption. And speaking of corruption, we've got to remind him. He's not going to talk about this here, but we've got to remind him about who is it that we got to remind? We've got to remind him about Sue, right? Because there's so many things that we've got to remind this vagabond, this political vagabond about. But we've got to remind him about this here. While he's running off his mouth some sort of oral diarrhea that he's suffering from with things that makes absolutely no sense.
Source. Okay, well, maybe the Chinese company that did not get the agreement that they wanted here, maybe they're the ones who told you, or it could be just a fictitious thing.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Sue Jerome?
Sue? Oh, Sue. My relationship? Nothing. He.
Notice his antics. Who? Sue? Sue? He doesn't want to talk about Sue, but he's going to call a so-called press conference. It's basically, you call it a therapy session. He should have had next to him there Dr. Who's it? Dr. Bayrou or something like that. He should have, or Dr. Beckles is dead now, so he can't get Dr. Beckles next to him. He needs that sort of person next to him to guide him. And soon as they're done, soon as he's done, there should have been a van or a truck to take him right next to that big building next to the Berbice, the Kanji Bridge, right next to the Kanji Bridge, and send him back home.
away with some spurious explanation. They're sticking at it's taking long, but they're sticking doggedly to it, even if it takes a bit long. And we're not going to lose a cent from that, right? So again, the serious advisor, economic advisor said, in the did you comment on the media asked him on the PSA? And he said, it has not been submitted. At the appropriate time, we release these because we want to present them in a structured manner. Oh God, how can you even say something so stupid?
Just the way he said, "Oh God, oh God." Look, guys, it's just a waste of time. I just thought that I bring this to your attention as to what this goon is going to come out and say. That's basically it. And the trench crappos come out. One of the trench crappos come out right away. Thank you, Lemon. Throw him in the trench. Don't give them no time of the day. Let them go along the way. Right off. As soon as Ramesh came on, Ramesh gone. Back in the trench with the mud. Right? It's a waste of time listening to this guy. Absolute waste of time. You know, and what else is it that we can? We want to remind you guys that the court hearing today at the International Court is as a result of the coalition, the APNU AFC government that has brought this victory here. It has nothing to do with Jack Dale. It has nothing to do with the PPP. Had that been the case, Jack Dale and the PPP would have been selling out Guyana piece by piece to the Venezuelans, piece by piece. That was his intention. And he has said that in the so-called name of cooperation, and they get piece of the water, and he gets piece of the water. That is what he has been saying. He told Hugo Chavez this when he met with Hugo Chavez. They were hugging each other. He grabbed on to Hugo Chavez, and they struck that deal right there. And so he said to Hugo Chavez, "You get some of the water, and we get some," and he, Jack, they get some of the water, and they could all survive by sharing the water, basically, right? The river or whatever. And so that the Guyana economic zone, that Venezuela could just go in and share the water, that zone with Jack Dale. And that is what these guys are about. Flatfoot hustlers. That is what it's about. He's not patriotic. And so when he comes on now and he talks about, and this is a victory for everybody, and he appreciates the nonpartisan support. They only appreciate the nonpartisan support when it suits their agenda. But when they're going around doing all manner of things to citizens, targeting mainly persons of African descent and all these manner of things, people are hooligans, they're all sort of things. But he loves these reports that sucks up to them. And that's why I go back again to say that this report that was issued and addressing them as we stand with the government, and this person speak for themselves, not for me. And not for the thousands of people who have been disenfranchised and persons who have been deprived of having a rightfully elected government in office, to say that you stand on behalf of the people. No, you stand on behalf of yourself in addressing these people, saying that you stand with the government. No. We totally reject this statement. This statement is not acceptable at all. It is more a self-serving statement. And so with that, I'll take my leave. For now, I'll be back on at 9 o'clock, but I can't take it any longer with this individual, this big time 24/7 deceitful individual, who should have been charged with treason and put some bangles on him and some shackles on his feet. You notice, I don't know if you guys noticed, that the former president of Peru has been charged, and I think he is heading to jail, charged in a U.S. court. And one day, Jack Dale, one day. But for now, I've got to go. I had enough of this crap. So at least we get the main meat out of it, right? And we know that Tanti Moral is lying, and we can't allow Tanti Moral to lie at all. So we'll go. We'll see you tonight, 9 o'clock. Hopefully the coalition would respond to something, and no long press conference like this idiotic individual. I think this, what is it, question and answer time? Let's hear. Is somebody going to ask a question? Let's hear.
That at least when an issue is raised in the public domain now, that we respond comprehensively. So that if people can't in the future claim ignorance, and sometimes it's ignorance that leads to some of these articles being written by the media, and we're not disparaging the media for writing these articles. Maybe it's not enough information out here, it hasn't been researched enough, or people pose as media persons or posed as columnists, but they're really politicians. So we've seen a lot of that happening. For example, every week we see the Kachor distorting headlines.
Abusing time. We don't have time for that, but we've got to go. God bless you all until later this evening. Bye-bye.
Guyana, really nice. Guyana, it's a nice place.
Source.
Okay, well, let's talk about
Maybe the Chinese company that did not get the agreement that they wanted here, maybe they're the ones who told you, or it could be just a fictitious thing.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Jerome?
So my relationship.
Hey.